Welcome back to Dragon Dreams. My name is Ivan, and this is where we discuss all things OSR, indie, unconventional in the TTRPG hobby. Today, I'm going to teach you how to protect towns from murder hobos. Stay tuned. Have you ever been GMing a TTRPG, had your PCs try to raise hell in town, and then had them catch you off guard because you didn't plan the town's defenses? You were too focused on planning the dungeon. Well, here are some simple, effective tips for nipping this sort of thing in the bud so your PCs move on to the dungeon that you prepared. So, first of all, keep it simple and keep it smart. Your first line of defense is to think practically about what sort of guard the town has and what resources it has to defend itself. So while it's tempting to go for high-level NPCs, magic, or even monsters, that feels kind of unrealistic, even in fantasy. If you can check bad behaving PCs with simple techniques that nobody can doubt the place would have, you got them. The first step is to organize the layout of the town's defenses. You can start by dividing districts into walled wards with guard towers and gates, and then you put a wall around the entire thing. So make your gates downright nasty in normal ways that were used all the time in the Middle Ages. Each gatehouse should have portcullises on both sides. You ought to have murder holes in the ceiling, arrow slits in the walls. If criminals try to get through, let them in the first portcullis and slam it down behind them. That way there's portcullises on either side. They're trapped. Shoot arrows in them in there from the walls where you have arrow slits. Have the spear guys with the murder holes stabbing down at them, and then move guards with like pole arms, like halberds, which have spears on the end of them. Come in and stab at them through the portcullis where they can't get to the guards, and say, no, you can't attack them. Like they're far enough back that they can stab at you with a certain range, let's say within 5 feet of the inside of the portcullis, right? But you can't get at them unless you, of course, use missile weapons on them. But meanwhile, you have all the stuff going down. You could also have them throw like boiling oil on them, have little holes that, little chutes that can pour boiling oil on stuff. They literally had that. And then the other nice thing about having all these gatehouses and towers all around, not to mention battlements, is those are more places for archers to shoot at the PCs. You see where this is going? Make sure that there are ways for the guards to sound the alarm, or for ordinary people to sound the alarm. Have bells in the towers, have horns available that people can blow, like have like a bunch of the guards all carry horns they can blow. Have a couple of them split off from the back of a guard unit and go get reinforcements. Have little towers with bells that a peasant can run up and ring to call the guards. Okay. Have a hue and cry system where people run around yelling, thief, thief, murder, murder, right? And that will communicate throughout the town to get all the guards coming in at the criminal. I'm going to start with archers. So these can shoot at the PCs from lots of vantage points, including battlements and towers, through arrow slits. And they're really great because they can shoot at a pretty long range. Cavalry. So cavalry can do all sorts of fun things. They can use lances, which do a lot of damage. They can ride down fleeing PCs. Several of them can dispatch off to get reinforcements and to tell the rest of the guard what's going on. You can have mounted archers. This was a thing in a lot of cultures. You can have mounted guys with nets and lassos. So there's a lot of really fun things with cavalry. They can move really quickly. They can jump over bushes and rocks, and maul stand or rather market stands and all that kind of stuff. Finally, we have our specialists. Have dog handlers with war dogs ready to sniff out the PCs. Have guys with nets ready to capture them. You could have stealth NPCs to spy on them, to trick them, or even backstab them. Think about all the things that your players do in dungeons. Have guys with Greek fire ready to throw at them. Have like canisters of oil that can be lit on fire, like barrels, flaming barrels that can be rolled at them. There's all sorts of really neat things that that a special ops kind of a guard can do when you stop and think about it. Now, all of this can be done with low-level soldiers. So the officers might be somewhat higher level, but you can do this with first-level fighters, with 0th level characters. It can still be very effective if it's done right. And in a big city, you might have higher level guys, but I'd still, if you want to keep things kind of realistic, I'd still keep them like second level guards. Like maybe the capital hires these elite second level fighters for all of their guards, and they're kind of second level on up because they're just badasses or something. But, use that sparingly. And if you manage to capture or kill the PC criminals, it's going to send a message to your players that ordinary soldiers, or even peasants, as we'll see in a sec, can take them down. It really will make them think twice. Now, let's push this a little bit in the direction of fantasy. So, what if this isn't enough? Particularly when you have characters that are a little higher level. You may need to pull out some big guns in order to get them, but I think you can still do it in a way that still feels appropriate for the fantasy world without feeling like you're just coming up with ridiculous stuff. Like there's, a bunch of, like, all the guards are 5th level fighters and there's 12th level magic users everywhere or something. So a few ways that you can zhush it up a little bit. Obviously, you can throw in some higher level NPCs. There could be like some really notable heroes of the realm or notable knights or people like that. You can have like the famous, of course, court wizard. There really were court mages in the Renaissance. I mean, obviously, whether they had magic powers is debatable, but people at the time thought they did. And they really existed. Like they had towers in castles. It was more like they were given a tower in a castle as their special wizardry place. So it really is normal for like a lord to have, like a court mage who might come out and may have some apprentices. So that can really mix it up even at low level. Wizards can cast sleep spells on low-level PCs and problem solved. If the PCs are too high for sleep, sleep can be great for crowd control. Put sleep on the civilians that are around them, and now suddenly your archers can pick off the PCs without endangering civilians. You could cast charm person spells on them. If they fail their saving throw, they think that, the wizard is their best friend and are easy to subdue. Put a web spell on them if the mage has access to 2nd level spells. If they have access to 3rd level spells, have them cast haste on a group of guards. My PCs in my current Beckme campaign love to use haste and use it at every available opportunity. So your guards and their wizard friends should use it as well if they have access to that. Clerics can cast silent spells on spellcasters. They can cast Bless on a whole group of guards to give them bonuses. And believe me, my players use this at every available opportunity also, and it really makes a difference. They can also heal the guards, even from a distance. Uh, so there's some pretty interesting things you can try with spellcasters. Here's another thing you could try sparingly if you're playing BX or BECMI or an OSR that has race as class. Have elves. So elves in those games are basically fighters and magic users at the same time. So, maybe there's this elite guard of elves that are like first and second level elves with, higher level commanders, and they can shoot arrows, they can fight hand to hand in full armor, and they can cast things like sleep and charm spells, or maybe the occasional web spell if they have access to that. That could be pretty badass. So a few small additions will feel unremarkable in a fantasy world, and it won't feel like you're overpowering the town or that you've just like gotten ridiculous in attempts to try to thwart the PCs. It will feel like this is how the town is supposed to be. So you may ask, what about villages? So let's suppose you have a little village, it's a little farming village. You don't really have like guards or anything. Well, a lot of these techniques are things that peasants could use, particularly if you have an entire group of them take to horse and ride to the nearest town to get the help from the authorities. So go to the Lord, go to his castle in town and say, help, help, there's criminals robbing or looting or murdering in our little farm village. Send in the knights, send in the cavalry, right? Send in the guard. But, a small group of peasants can do some pretty nasty stuff, particularly if it's well done. They can shoot at guys. They can still have makeshift little, alarm towers with bells on them. They can still have, like some wooden walls to keep the wolves out, or little, stone walls. I mean, farmers very often have stone walls just to, keep predators out and things like that. So they might just have like a little, not wall with battlements, but just a little stone wall around the town. There's lots of really neat things you can do. Shoot behind buildings, all sorts of things. And peasants are allowed to be scared, so they don't necessarily run in with spears and swords. Maybe they just, take pot shots at the PCs from behind, bales of hay or something while they're waiting for the Baron's soldiers to arrive and arrest the bad guys. So, villages can still work. So, one final tip. Show no mercy. If your players sack towns, it's because they don't have respect for the adventure that you've built. Now, some people may say it's a little bit immature to just have the town guard go after them and teach them a lesson, but I don't like to mess with my players' agency, right? Like, I want them to be able to feel that they can do whatever they want and don't feel like they have to go into the dungeon just because I made it for them. So this is, a way that you can kind of prod them and their PCs, literally at spear point, haha, to, actually get on with adventuring and not mess with your towns, because, the towns aren't really there for that. But if you don't really attend to how your towns are guarded, then your PCs are likely to mess with it. I'll tell you a really funny thing, that back before I used these techniques, I had players mess with my towns all the time. Once I implemented them, nobody ever messed with my towns again, because they could see, like, I'd give them information, like how the town's organized, how you see some guards going by, and this is what they're like, and they see arrow slits everywhere, and like there's like 2 portcullises in the thing, and you see murder holes and everything, and they get a sense of like, hey, wow, this is really freaky. I mean, this town's actually well guarded, and they don't mess with them. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe. Please share it with your friends. It really does help my algorithm. And I really appreciate the support of all of my subscribers, because it's really motivating to have you guys out there telling me, hey, we've missed you, we're glad you're back and everything. So thank you.